Thank you so much for accepting my request for the interview. I try to keep the format really simple. Ask very basic question, especially around the journey and then how you set goals and a message to the audience. But in this simple conversation, either a person or a situation or a thing come up that change your life and it can inspire other people as well. That's what I try to show. And I've been reading about you on LinkedIn and your website, and you have an amazing journey. You started with event dining manager, and then you became a director at Prosky, and I respect Prosky a lot in terms of the change management. I have done their change management certification that take 3 days of training. And then you started your own company 2 years ago, about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I started my own company about a year ago. It's been a journey, but I also work for another friend that I know who has started her own company, which is a consultancy. So I'm doing both at the same time. So I'm actually applying change management for a large financial organization while working on building and setting up my own business.
Courtney, I seen your LinkedIn comments and posts, and many of them are around micromanagement. And seems like you are one person want to eliminate micromanagement from the world, which is great.
I have a passion for people managers, and I think that everybody deserves to have a good experience at work. And I have a lot of focus on shifting the narrative around what it means to be somebody's boss and recognizing the impact that you have on other people when you are responsible for overseeing them at a job. And there's a lot of bad habits that managers have. So one of them that I've talked a lot about is micromanaging and how it kind of makes it about you in your position and takes away from your employees and their ability to do their job effectively.
Definitely. And I will share some input from my own insight that how I started my management journey without knowing that I'm micromanaging. So we'll come to that.
Yeah.
First, let's start with. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with the audience or whoever watching this video that what you do, what your company does, and what you can help these people.
Yeah, thank you. So my company is focused on supporting primarily new people managers, so those who are just entering the space and don't really know how to start. Oftentimes you're kind of trained. I think in most organizations you get a little bit of here's the goals we need you to drive your people towards, or maybe you just need to manage. You were the best customer service manager or customer service representative. So like, come in here, manage people, good luck. And that's kind of your introduction into management. Sometimes you get like a little course on company policy and HR policy. You usually get some videos to watch, but nobody really sits you down to say, when you enter into the management world, you're going to have some really tough conversations. There's going to be times when you have to make a decision between hiring two really great people and let one of them know they didn't get the position, or you may have to let somebody go at some point, or somebody might lose a loved one while they report to you, or somebody might just struggle with depression and anxiety and put that on your conversation table, but you don't know how to direct them and how to keep them moving forward, so that they can keep doing their job while also not wearing your own self down by taking on the burden of everything for everybody else. And so I've created a training course and then some coaching to help individual managers that are just getting started learn how to get comfortable being uncomfortable, learn how to develop, skill sets that we don't talk about too often when we're training managers. Like, how do I show up empathetically for my people when something tough happens? How do I be vulnerable while I'm still trying to establish my own authority to my team? How do I be transparent when there's this new information coming at me that I cannot disclose to my people yet? How do I manage that transparency? Or even things like, how do I actually do what I said I'm going to do? Like simple things on how do you structure your calendar and your reminders and things like that to get started effectively building trust and establishing safety with your team so that you can drive high performance for them and for yourself as a manager.
Is it the companies who can hire you, or new manager can directly contact you?
For the last year, I've been working primarily with a lot of managers who have kind of been just seeking help and have found me through connections. So it's been a lot of one-on-one relationships. But the goal as I grow is to be able to structure for organizational engagements. But right now, it's primarily one-on-one coaching because it's a solo entrepreneurship right now. So it's been nice to kind of be able to have that client time. But I hope to get to a space where I can broaden it.
Is that you're providing is not only for manager, but anybody who work for that manager. You helping both of them actually.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for absolutely like I want to coach the managers, but it makes a difference in the people that report to them as well. But also, I have really big dreams of helping organizations change the way we select and promote managers as well. It's not usually the best in position that makes the best manager, but so often that's the growth path for more money or for a better title or whatever it might be. And so we get a lot of disconnect between what we need our managers to do, what the job actually is, and how they actually fulfill it. And a lot of that comes, I think, from the way we select and promote. So I hope to one day have some content on that side, but I'm not as focused there right now.
Your childhood and high school, what do you wanted to become at that time?
I had a lot of things I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actress for a long time, but then I kind of got more shy as I got older. I wanted to be an architect for a while, but learned I wasn't good at math. But somewhere kind of toward the end of my high school career, I decided I wanted to own and run my own bed and breakfast. So that's kind of what I had in mind. In the back of my head. But I also really had this love for people and wanting to help people. And so that was also sitting in my mind as I was leaving college and trying to figure out or leaving high school, trying to figure out what to do in college.
I wanted to ask you about your career journey from your first job, the one that we just talked about, to where you are now.
Yeah. So my very first job, I was actually got thrown into management. I was 15 and a family friend started a deli in our town, and a bunch of me and my friends got to work there. And I thought it was so cool to be, in high school and having a job. And quickly, kind of at 16, I was on a shift and a manager quit. And they're like, "You guys are competent, Courtney, you're up, you're shift manager." So I kind of got thrown into it even at 16 before I knew I had this passion for people managers. And that really set off my work ethic, I think, and my ability to balance working and being in school. It really started early. And then I went to the Walt Disney Company. So I worked for about 8 months at an internship at Disney World for a hotel, at a restaurant at a hotel, actually. It was a very intense experience, to be honest. A lot of hours, a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. From there, I managed and at the Baldpate Inn in Colorado. I got to do our events, so at the restaurant essentially in our events and dining. So wedding planning mixed with restaurant management. Again, another really fast-paced environment. I learned really, really quickly that wedding planning was not for me. There's a lot of emotions involved in wedding planning that I wasn't quite ready to deal with at that time. I think I'd be better suited for it now. But then I was like, I'm going to do something else. And so I searched 100% travel in Indeed at the time, and in my school, CSU's website, Colorado State University. And all I searched for was 100% travel. And I found ProSci for a training manager position. And I got that position in 2011. And I got to travel the world quite literally with the master instructors that work for ProSci. So they're all former executives from large organizations who taught ProSci's change management certification. And I got to go all over with them and help facilitate this certification. So I became extremely well-versed and immersed in the world of change management at that time. And then I grew my career with ProSci over the next decade there.
And you left that company as a director.
Yeah, I got to be a director and support our global network. So I was supporting individuals facilitating change management around the globe, as well as overseeing 2 different teams, an entry-level team and a content expert team. And I actually had the pleasure of standing up that department with a colleague. ProSci was really small when I started, so I think all, I don't know, 20 of the people in the office, essentially, when I would go in as a training manager, could fit around a boardroom table and would eat lunch together. Till now, I think there's, 200 plus individuals with multiple um, headquarters around the world. So it's grown significantly in the time that I was there, and they continue to do so.
Then you started your company. Well,
Yeah, I kind of did them simultaneously. When I joined Workwell, I said, I really am excited to jump in and do some hands-on change management consulting. But I let her know, at the same time, I have this passion and I'm building it alongside this work that I'm doing. Is that okay? And it was nothing but support. Absolutely, please do that. So it's been a balance. When do I take calls in the morning versus the evening, and have had some interesting hours for my own work while also working to do change management consulting. And I also have a 3-year-old son, so it's been a balancing act, but it's been working so far. Yeah.
if you want to kind of highlight some of the things that worked well for you and created the path for you.
What worked well to grow in my career there? Yeah. I think there's a lot of things. I think the very first thing that I learned early was to ask questions. I had an unbelievable network in front of me with those master instructors. I think a lot of different things worked at ProSci. I recognized the network that I had in front of me. These retired instructor, or they're not retired, they were full-time instructors, but they were retired from the executive positions that they had held. So, executives from companies like the Ford Motor Company, the state of California, Key Bank. I was traveling with them week in and week out, and I was really open to any feedback that they were willing to give me. I remember one of the instructors, Jim, the first time I got up in front of the class to share my part of the facilitation, I came back to probably 45 sticky notes on my little desk, and that said, "You said like 15 times, stop scratching your face, or you're using your hands way too much." And I took all of that to heart and would practice. And every time I worked with him, I would see the sticky notes kind of reducing. The next time, maybe I had 15 and then 10. And then one day I was like, "Oh, Jim, there's no more sticky notes for me." And, he'd say, "I'm proud of you for taking my feedback." And I really took that to heart because I recognized how valuable that feedback was. And I think that was a good trajectory for my growth at ProSci. I like to ask questions. I like to get involved. And I really think that understanding the business was something that helped me grow. I didn't just ask questions related to my role. I would say, "I'm not flying anywhere this Friday. Can I come into the office and work with the logistics team, or help back with the production team? Or, my boss, do you need any help? Can I do anything there?" And that opened a lot of doors for me in a lot of different areas. So over time, I developed a lot of just content expertise, yes, but also operational expertise, and the integration of the two really helped put me in a position where I was able to grow and offer a different kind of benefit to the company for keep promoting me upward.
You gave some very specific tips that how engaged you was, how much you wanted to going that extra 1 mile, right? Extra mile.
Yeah.
From this job to opening your new own company, and impressive how clear you are what you are offering and what you wanted to do and how you will be able to help. So where this clarity came from, how did you prepare that this will be your purpose moving forward?
It's been a long process. I've probably been thinking about it for maybe 5 years. So it's been in my head, and I probably just started putting it out there since 2020. But I just kind of get these ideas and start to run them by people. Things like, "Have you ever struggled with your manager, or do you struggle as a manager? What kind of training did you get?" And I just start asking people, and then start sharing some of my thoughts to say, I feel like a lot of managers don't really mean it. I feel like they kind of just show up and kind of almost avoid their employees, or get into micromanaging, or are uncomfortable if something personal comes up. And I would just kind of start to validate that with people. And then that's kind of where management excellence, the tagline, "If you're going to manage, you have to mean it," came from. So it was a lot of slow progression around things like that. But idea that everybody's got a boss. Everybody really wants to work for a good boss, but a lot of the bosses don't get taught how to be a good boss in the ways that the people are asking, was a thread that just kept sticking in my mind. And so I just really started writing, started building. At Pros, I had a lot of experience building out the content. I had a lot of opportunities to work with the development team, a lot of opportunities just to create. They offer some advanced certifications, and I got the pleasure to build those with support from the chief innovation officer. So I had the experience around building content, and I really wanted to just get some of these thoughts out. So I just started building, and probably the first like 4 or 5 iterations made no sense and just were my thoughts just completely blurted out there. But I spent time, as I was thinking about it and as I started putting it out there on LinkedIn first and then creating a website, just asking people if it made sense, refining and fixing what wasn't coming across clearly. And I'm happy to hear you say it is clear. I think the perfectionist in me still thinks that I have a long way to go to get even more clear.
So, Courtney, to be able to come to this level, career ladder to the director position, and also to found a company, it cannot be done without a solid goal setting and time management process, right? So, I want to learn more about how you set your dream goals and how do you manage your time and tasks.
It's kind of been all over the place for a long time because I always have so much I wanted to do or achieve. But so I had a son in 2019. I think that my process really shifted. So I think I write absolutely everything down. I've got my Google Calendar, sometimes feels like down to the minute of the things that go on. But I start with, okay, what are my responsibilities that I have to make sure that my son is completely taken care of and has everything that he needs? And then I dive into, what are the commitments that I have that are absolutely critical for work well? And then what are the things I have that are absolutely critical for myself for management excellence this week? And then I kind of start to look at the hours in the day and the reality of how many I have, and prioritize from there in terms of how long do I think something's going to take. My goal setting for management excellence has been a little looser actually than in the past, to say, I have a lot of big places I want to get to. So what is one thing I can do today or this week that's going to help me get to where I want to be in the future? And I've been trying to keep that mindset going day after day, because, 90% of the first year of any of the work that I did was, 4 a.m. in the morning until my son woke up at 7, or, 7 p.m. when he went to bed until midnight or 1 a.m. And as I was building it out. And I think that just grit of, this is something I'm doing today that's going to help change where I want to be with him in the future, in terms of just creating a little bit more flexibility for myself with him. So that was a big motivator for me. And then just genuinely, I write it all down, and we have it hanging in our kitchen. So my husband and I are a team on that. So we know what's going on each week and anything that's going on. And then I live by alerts. If it doesn't alert me on my phone, I get a little too overwhelmed and get things mixed up. So that's critical for me. But honestly, usually once I write it down, that's why I still have the physical calendar, then it kind of absorbs into my mind, and I use the electronic one as the backup to remind me digitally.
Are you using a physical notebook to write all this, or you electronic app?
Everything when I start is physical. Even when I try to write a LinkedIn post, I usually write it down at least to some extent in bullets physically. I don't know that I've shifted yet. I don't know if that's a generational thing. I don't know if it's just a preference, but I usually write everything down first. For some reason, that pen to mind connection is still very strong. I could give you, I'll show you some. I don't know if you can see it, but just kind of over here on my wall.
Oh my God.
I have
board.
For management excellence, I know that a lot of my target market is on Instagram, or I don't have a TikTok, and I don't think I'm going to go there, but I know that they exist on Instagram, and it's not something I'm super comfortable with. So my notes of how do I plan a strategy. So I've actually got about 12 days worth of ideas for content on the wall. That's kind of how I get started.
And I have interviewed many people, and many of them are actually using Notepad for
Yeah.
their task management. This is so amazing.
Yeah, I think there's some, I have to search for it, but I think there's some research that kind of makes that connection of actually writing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
down. Yeah. So I don't think I'll ever let that go.
And it's very hard to find your passion and purpose. And seems like you are at the level where you know what your passion and what the cause that you want to work at.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how did you discover that this is what you will go after for next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah. Stumbled into it. I've always wanted to help people, and I think that and create an experience for someone. That's always been kind of an underlying thread of interest of mine. And when I managed when I was 16, I got really good feedback, and I was oftentimes kind of surprised by that because there were people, who were I was overseeing who were 50 or 60 years old and I was 16. And so that was a really interesting experience. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this. I don't know. And I just kind of let that be. And then when I was a wedding planner and I had a team of 35, uh, I also got very similar feedback. People were saying, can I be on your shift versus this other manager's shift? I'd really like to do that. And again, it was like, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this and I like it. And then when I started managing at ProSci, I mean, I just was so engaged with the teams that I had there. And I just loved the just energy that we could create for each other. I learned so much from the people that reported to me, and they've shared that they learned from me. And it just created this energy of like, wow, I really want to come to work today. I really want to be here. I mean, so often we spend more time with our colleagues at work than we get to spend with our own families. And that kind of always stuck with me. And, I've had several people who have said, I really miss reporting to you. That was one of like the most fun times I had because I felt like I could learn, I could be myself. I felt like I was contributing really strongly. And then it just kept lighting this fire of how do we create these just environments across business? How do we help people who might not have wanted to become managers build a better connection with their people, or people who know it's something they do want to do but have no idea how to get started? How do we start to get there? And it just that fire when I was like, I really like this. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work. I'm thinking about it, when I'm not, at either when I was at ProSci or when I'm not doing something that's work, I was still thinking about this work I wanted to do. And so I was like, this is something I really want to just give it a shot and see if I can continue to make a career out of it. But I really have a passion as well for things like keeping more women in the workforce and, showing people leadership that might look a little different, a little less command and control, a little more just kind of that softer, empathetic approach. Because I never saw that really in my career. And I would be nervous to say, I don't think I could get to the executive ranks because I'm not intense and I'm not overly command and control. And I started to realize, well, no, that's not true. There's tons of leaders that look like that. How do we just get the visibility out there? And how do we just start to help people learn the skills early so that we see more of them show up in all layers of business? So there's just a lot of things that boiled into one that kind of let me know this is something I want to keep doing, that I'm passionate about.
That's another very insightful that how you went back and start looking at things, people comments, plus what you have done, the environment that you have created, plus the gap that we have in the society or the workforce, and then that's how you kind of place yourself that this is where you fit, and this is where your business will be, your company will be.
Yeah. We see so many studies too lately coming out, Harvard Business Review or the Gallup polls that are coming out about, people leaving the workforce. We hear great resignation all the time. But we also hear the number one reason people quit their jobs is because of their managers. We hear that consistently. And now we're starting to hear consistently the number one skill set that people are asking for is empathy. And then, closely followed by flexibility. And I think it just was continuing to point me to these are not new desires of people. I think it's just we need to look at a new way to help the people who lead the people show these skills.
When I became manager for the first time, I was a programmer, became a technical manager for a programming team, and then it changed again 4 or 5 years ago, from the technical manager to activation manager, and I have a completely different group of people. And it happened both the time. When I became the manager for the first time, it took me some time to realize that where I'm can affect more than leading the team to deliver more. Even though there was so much my company was offering in terms of the training, I still wanted to run with the same pace as I was as a senior programmer or the team leader. I became manager, and instead of thinking I have to start from scratch, I wanted to keep running with the same commands. And then what you find that all the new tasks that comes with the management, you don't have that gut feeling that you have in your previous role. And it takes time to gain that gut feeling. And it was more prominent when I became the senior manager, and I still wanted to continue to run with that same pace. And I am a new senior manager there, and there is a gap to fill with me being there. And I didn't take the pause, and I started kind of more on a finding that gut feeling, and then being in control. You go into the detail and you start thinking, what's exactly happening? If I can understand this, then probably I will develop that gut feeling, right, in this new role. And that's when unknowingly you start micromanaging, and your team can feel it, but you don't. You kind of still thinking that you're trying to do your job, and I realize that, but it's not easy in the beginning. And I wanted to give you that perspective that when people become when their role change, sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes it's they're running with the same phase. They don't even realize that they need to take a pause and stop. And I'm seeing now new manager in my company where, even though my company is providing at least 15 different trainings for new managers, I don't know if they have attended those, because they are running with the exact same pace, very fast, the way they were running as the team leader.
A very similar experience when I made that shift at ProSci as well. I think it's such a challenging bridge, or just gap from when you're the content expert or the technical expert and you're in it every single day and you see it and you feel it and you know it and there's no questions. And then it's like kind of like you're running up this hill of experience, and then you just plummet because you're like, wait, now I have to balance kind of the workload, especially if you're like a player coach, like a team lead. That's hard too, because you're still kind of doing the job a little bit while also starting to take on management skills, and your workload doubles. And while the intent is good because you start to develop the skills you need on the manager and the leader side, you're just so over capacity too. And you're trying to develop trust with your people to get to that next level. Like, I want to trust you to make this decision, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what that looks like for me to trust you. And that takes the time. And it's such a whirlwind. Yeah. And that's kind of where I want to help, is that gap, right? Like, as you get further in management, you've seen it, you have these gut experiences, and you kind of know what, and just trust yourself a little bit more too. But how do you get from kind of this side of the island to this side without, plummeting? Yeah, and burnout is a big one. I burnt myself out by trying to do everything and be everything to everyone and not know how to set my own boundaries and say yes and say yes. And I want to help people understand too that while you are there to manage other people, you are there for them, they're in your charge. You also have to take care of yourself first, or even just that exhaustion can lead to micromanaging or other habits of just, it's just going to be easier if I do it myself rather than teach you how to do it. I think we've all felt or said that before.
Yeah, I almost feel like in these time when you became manager, there are hundreds of things you're doing your previous job and the new job, and you're in the mix, so you have a lot to do. But even though there's so much going on, somehow take a pause, 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, whatever this training is, do one training a month, a quarter, but be very intentional, starting from scratch, that this is a new job, and it comes with completely new skills that you don't have. I think that's something like that they have to think. Otherwise, they keep running into as they were running before.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for any manager. It's a completely new job.
It's a completely new job.
Yeah.
I want to get into the last phase of our interview. That what is your message to the audience?
When you're developing your career, I think it's say yes to different opportunities. I think so often we have in our mind that we're going to go down this one path, that we might not even see how bright the light is shining on the other path. And so even if that's just taking on, a couple of interesting projects, like I said, really early in my career, I was like, hey, development team, do you need any help with anything? Hey, customer service, I answer phones and see what you do. And it was a lot out of curiosity of trying to figure out what I like, but also having a desire to help. But I think just like your toe and to figure out what you like is not a bad thing. I think that you could go, through a door both ways. So you can always try something. And if you don't like it, there's nothing wrong with going back to something else. And I think, there's so many studies that your EQ will get you further than your IQ. Your emotional intelligence will get you further than your intellectual intelligence. And so I think developing relationships and making connections is often really hard when you're in your early career. You're a little uncomfortable. You're not sure how to do that. I think my advice would be just start the conversation, start it with different people, and you never know when those conversations or those connections will come back around in your career 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later. I know that every conversation I've had about a job, after I decided to leave ProSci, was all mutual connections. And I think that stuff really opens a lot of doors, but it also helps people kind of connect with you. And it just makes life more enjoyable at work as well. So I think really focus on working on those emotional intelligence skills, those softer skills that we don't often highlight as frequently while we're developing, while we're earning our bachelor's degree. It's not often focused on those. So just don't leave them behind, because they really do make a big impact in your career.
Courtney, how can people find you?
Through my website, which it could be a little confusing because it's managementexcellence.com, but it's MEANT. Like if you're going to manage, mean it, put meaning into your management. You can find me as well. I launched today my Instagram, so I'm starting to put content out through there. And then in January, I'll actually have an on-demand course. So I ran a couple not in person, but virtual trainings that were live, so interactive. And I received a ton of feedback from people, which surprised me, just given my background with live training, that they want something on demand, watch when possible, which makes sense for a manager audience. You're very busy. So I'll actually have one coming out at the end of January. So, which will be all about kind of how do you set up one-on-ones with your employees? How do you create an employee preference profile so you get to know your people? How do you set boundaries and hold your boundaries as a manager to avoid burnout? How do you show up authentically? And then all the way through developing empathy, vulnerability, radical transparency, flexibility, advocacy, and follow through. So,
are you planning a YouTube as well?
I don't have experience with YouTube, so maybe I'll have to learn from you. I mean, what do you think about it?
You are excellent in front of camera, and you will be amazing.
It's so hard too. And then we have that instant gratification, wanting to see if anybody saw it or viewed it. In that imposter syndrome of how do I do this? Yeah.
I'm full of it. I'm full of imposter syndrome.
Never know it. You're very confident as a YouTube host.
If somebody want to get your services, do you want to give an idea? Is it if you want to answer that?
The great thing of joining when I'm in my entrepreneur state is I'm pretty flexible because I want to help. Like I want to get in there. I typically set my calls around $60 for an hour session. And so that's what I've been charging right now. But my on-demand program will be $87 for the class. So it'll be one thing I really want to do. One thing I found really challenging is if I couldn't get ProSite to sponsor or a previous company to sponsor my training, I needed to find something affordable that I could sponsor myself. And so that's where I want to be for people. If you need help, you need that on-demand help, you want that training and you want to pursue it yourself and you don't want to have to pitch the case to your boss, I want it to be affordable, but also it's affordable enough that hopefully most bosses are going to say yes, because I can promise you these skill sets. Building just a better boss, a more confident boss who can set boundaries is better business.
Do you also help people who want to become manager and not there yet? Like they don't have the title, but they have immense desire to become one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually been coaching someone very similar who knows and has applied and has been told you're not quite there yet. I have been actually, but we're focusing more on skills, on things like time management. We talked a little bit about that in our call. How do you manage your tasks? How do you manage competing priorities? And I've talked a little bit about like getting into things like delegation and not saying yes to everything and building that trust early. So starting to set some of those seeds for the skills you need, while also helping develop the skills that have been defined as a gap by the business to not be ready quite yet for the manager position. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to share that I have not asked in this interview? Anything that you think will be beneficial for the audience?
Every career is going to have its ups and downs, right? I think one thing is just, riding the downs to know you're going to come back up again. And it's okay to make shifts for yourself. I think that's one thing I was so scared of for so long, to be like, I'm good at this and I like it here. It's not going to be better anywhere else. And not necessarily that it's better, but it's energizing. And when you feel like you need to come out of that down dip, maybe look for something that's going to energize you. And it doesn't have to be somewhere else. But like I said, you can tackle different projects inside, but just knowing that it's going to happen, I think is something I wish I knew. Like, I just kind of thought your career goes like this. But, there are times when you don't want to have that 8 a.m. meeting that you set up yourself, you go down, or you don't know where you're going in your career. And it just feels hard sometimes. And I think that's true for everybody. So I think someone would have just told me, it goes up and down, and just keep pushing, because it gets better. And then it just goes like this. But that's what I want to say. Like, hang in there, because it can get back up again if you feel down. And I think right now too, sorry, like the point I wanted to make was, we're in a weird time. Like, we're all virtual, we're moving virtual, we're working from home, we're all establishing new normals. And I think people early in their career who are in this really messy time to start, that's why I wanted to say it, because it just probably feels so odd to not necessarily have met all your colleagues in person, maybe even some of them. You've been virtual since the start. Like, for me, it's been so tough because I love that in-person interaction. And so it felt very down for me until I started getting engaged better on video, or just figuring out ways to make connections. So in those times, it can come back up.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Do you have any question for me?
I mean, what advice do you typically give when you're talking to people early in their career? What's your number one piece of advice?
There was somebody who was in my team, and she was very good at what she was doing, but she was not able to see 2 years, 4 years, 5 years from where she could be. So as a manager, I was able to guide her. What's next for you? Keep thinking what's next for you. You're not going to be in the same role for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So what's next? So I help her find that this is the next, and I even help her find what the strong points are. So I like to do that a lot, helping people find what their next thing could be and what they could be good at. The other thing that I try to do, I advise that get a mentor in their field. So mentor somebody who can give you more concrete instructions. He's from your industry and can guide you what 5-10 years looks like. And a coach, somebody who can help you get the answer from deep within. And a combination of these two can help you find who you are, that can lead you to the passion and purpose and something that you can set yourself for 20, 30 years. Now, at the same time, in the initial career, like if somebody who start, let's say first 3 year, 5 year, don't even think what you're doing. If you're working, spend so much time, like so much extra time on your work, and try to get involved with more and more things. Don't think that if you're in support that your life will be support, but just try to do better and try to do more of it, and then also get involved. And then the final advice I try to give everybody is, don't just rely on your full-time work. Try to do something part-time. It could be an activity that is in your kids' school. There are parent teacher associations there, your church, your temple, community, anywhere you can get involved and either get a position or just help, right? I think one of the tremendous growth that I gained when I became a president of my son high school PTSA. And as a president, I stabilized a college and career center there and conducted many other program. And the principal has said, while in 2 year window, that you brought life to the PTSA. And working with all those other parents and running as a president, right? Running as a president, presentation, my weakest point, but I had to conduct monthly meetings there. And my job as a president is to influence and support people and get the ideas going without any I mean, in this case, I didn't have any authority on those parents, but all volunteers. But point is, I seen a tremendous growth in my own confidence by doing this. So I always say that do something on the side. Either it's a part-time job or a freelancing job or something like this.
Yeah, in your quiver. I like that. You said one thing, and I'll end on this. With that was really great that I coached a lot of managers on. Is you said I helped my team members see the future, see what could be coming, see what's there for them. And I had a mentor really early from Disney who told me, if you're managing people, your job is them. So if they're still in the same position and they're high performers and they're in the same position under you, within 2 years, I think the time frame doesn't really matter, but 2 years later, same pay, same position, same responsibilities, that person hasn't failed, you failed as a manager. And that always stood with me of how do we grow our people. So I loved that you said that.
Courtney, believe it or not, a few months ago, one of the top performer in my team, and I heavily rely on this person. I spent almost 3 weeks convincing him that there is another opportunity within the team, within the department that you should get into. And his first response was, are you indicating me something? Am I not doing my job? I mean, obviously, right? If the manager is saying something like that, but I told him, I will be in trouble if you go to this position. And I told him that if I don't do this today, in a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to leave and join another company.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
you can't just do the same thing over and over again for next 5 years. You also need growth, and I think you will fit well there, and you can continue to help me from that position.
Maybe one day we can have another conversation, because that is such a good example of the advocacy piece that I want managers to learn, because sometimes they're not growing on your team, they're growing somewhere else, but you have to help them get there. I love that.
It was fun talking to you. It was one of the best interviews I had.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of fun. It was a good time. I appreciate the invite.
Our follow-up item is let's connect again. And then I'm going to help you and kind of encourage you and push you to start your own YouTube.
I would love to do conversations, and you'll be one of the first guests if I can figure it out. So I may have some questions for you.
Sure thing.
Well, thank you. I hope you have a good day.
You too. Bye for now.